are you?
Thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
No, thank you. So, first, I want to ask you, I know you're from the Bronx, right? So, how authentic is the portrayal of New York in the show?
I'd say very authentic. I think we got right in the middle of it all. There was no design set, there was no fake house or anything like that. So we were really in the city, which is funny because every day I'm like, this is full circle for me. I was so annoying about that joke. I would just every day we come to a new part of the city and I'd be like, this is where I did this, or this is where I would hang when I was 18 or whatever. So it was cool. It was very full circle. But I definitely think New York is its own character in this. And I think it makes sense for it to be the backdrop of this story.
Yeah, definitely. Especially with mobs and gangsters and stuff like that. So I know you have Dominican descent, but you are playing someone who has I don't want to botch the word, but Guyanese descent.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
Guyanese descent, sorry. So did you have any Guyanese friends growing up that kind of made you feel a little bit more connected to the role and be able to portray someone who has that kind of descent other than Dominican?
Yeah, definitely. One friend. He's actually in the show. He plays Keeson. Shamar, I met him when I was maybe 16, 17. Before, we were just both hungry and wanting to do it. And so I definitely called him right away and was like, yo, playing this part, playing this character. He's like, man, I'll see you there. I'm gonna be, I'm gonna be in it too. And so I got to really lean on him for a lot because it's a very tricky thing to adopt another culture, and you want to do it as genuinely as possible. Luckily for me as an actor, though, Aked kind of sits in the middle of New York and Guyana. He's from New York. At the end of the day, he's from Queens. He's a New Yorker. He's just so indebted to his Guyanese family.
Yeah. So, speaking of Aked, how would you describe your character, to someone who hasn't watched the show?
A nutcase, a crazy psychotic man, who's very lost in the world. Um, it's interesting. He's an interesting character in my opinion because in the beginning he's this villain and he's this monster. He kind of just right off the gate, there's no real reasoning for his madness, and you kind of are uncomfortable with how angry he is. And then as the season goes along, I think you start to peel layers off of him, and you start to realize that he's really traumatized and he's really trying to fill shoes that are way too big for him. And I think he feels like his family passed him the torch, but really they handed him a bomb and he had no idea. He had no idea. And so when all these revelations come towards the end for him, not only does he realize that he is alone, I think he realizes he's always been alone. And there's no worse feeling than that. And so I think he's one of those villains that by the end you kind of have some sort of a soft spot for him, um, because you realize that he created his own downfall and his own demise.
Yeah, definitely. Starting to watch the show, like when I started it, I was like, I don't like him. And then you see everything that comes out and you feel sorry for him because I mean, it's not his fault that, he has so much trauma. But speaking of that and trying to make the character create it more to life and stuff like that, did you study any certain actors or characters on different shows or movies to kind of play this role like you wanted to and give it justice?
Uh no, I don't think so. I think it mainly came from conversations I had with Steven and the script. Really, on the script, he really is monstrous, and most of the things he says are pretty aggressive and mean. So it was really sitting with Steven and talking about how to put some sort of heart in there. Um, I guess if I thought about certain villains, I could think of like my favorites and think of how they all had heart. Like I think my favorite villain of all time is um Gus Fringe from Breaking Bad, and the way Giancarlo was able to play him with such dark subtlety, but there's still this poise and intelligence that he was able to carry that made him so relatable and have heart. And it's like not this one dimension. And so I think with the little bit of time I had to prep for this role, it was really just about focusing on making it multi-dimensional, and that's hard to do when the words are just this, being aggressive all the time.
Yeah, of course. And writer Ed Solomon and director Steven, they're not from New York, nor are they Guyanese. So, what care did they take to make this portrayal like take it true to life?
Well, they definitely involved a lot of Guyanese consultants and actors. I think they were very serious about, um, CCH, he's Guyanese. Paul Dutt, who plays Garmin, he's Guyanese. Um, I think having them as the center of the center of the set and kind of guiding the younger actors, that helped a lot. Also, Ed did something really special where usually in a film where you see a villain, or especially a villain who is a person of color, there's one dimension going on. They're just this evil person who has an accent or a dialect, and they're just yelling and being a villain, but Ed was able to flesh out, Ed was able to flesh out the culture. Ed was able to really get you there. And so instead of just talking about Guyana, we really went, they really went to Guyana and shot in Guyana. And so I think just bringing that sort of authenticity to it helps, and definitely helped a lot.
That's amazing. I didn't know they went there. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
So, do you think any of your background or childhood experiences growing up helps you with playing a kid?
I hope not. I definitely hope I am as different from a kid as I can be. As an actor, it's your job to love all the characters you play, and find the heart in the human. And so I definitely did that for a kid, but I definitely separated myself from him a ton. I think the way he goes about certain things, I hope to not go about it the same way. Um, but I'm a New Yorker, just like a kid is. I'm a family-oriented person, just like a kid is. And so there were definitely some correlations that helped me get into this character a bit easier. But in terms of the aggression, yeah, I just kind of let out a lot of my anger, just yelling at people for fun.
Yeah, so why did you decide to play this role? I mean, a kid, you like you said, he's very aggressive. He is kind of a villain. And he creates, like you said, his own downfall and stuff. What made you want to place a villain?
Uh, when Steven Soderbergh calls your phone, you pick up and you say yes. I trust him so much as a director and an artist. So it didn't really matter what part I played in this. I'm honored to have played anything. Because I now get to go down in history as an actor who got to work with such a prolific artist and director. But yeah, I've played a lot of different characters in my past, and I think the thread of those characters have been this innocence and this pure, kind joy. I wanted to just do something different and kind of just play a more dark and brooding character that has very little innocence to him. Um, yeah, just something different, stretch myself and something out the box. And again, HBO, Steve Soderbergh, it's a dream sort of matchup.
And what do you think was the vibe on set?
Um, uh, Focused, Steve trusts his actors to the point where he believes that you will come to set ready and memorized and prepared, and almost like rehearsed. There weren't many rehearsals, so it required everyone to up their game a little bit. Everyone had to be on point, had to be focused. We had some 6-hour days. Can you believe that? We got full scenes done in 6 hours, sometimes 7 hours, and that came from everybody carrying this militant energy with them, knowing who they were working with. And so, yeah, I think on set, it felt intense. It felt very intense. And then you're working in the middle of New York City, which is a very intense city. So it definitely did some long nights.
And you definitely say that Steven is a different kind of director. He's not the same as everyone. So why do you think, or what do you think Steven does differently than other directors that you think is innovative and creative and kind of makes the show special?
I think the main thing is that he controls the camera himself. A lot of directors lean on a DP to come up with all the shots, the colors, the way it all looks, but Steven trusts himself enough to know what his vision is, and he holds the camera himself. Not often are you trying to ignore the camera that the director is behind, like the director's far away, he's in his chair, we don't gotta worry about it, but the director's right there. So there's almost like this looming presence while you're working. And so it requires, like I said, it requires you upping the game and coming in with more commitment than you might usually want to. Doesn't matter what time it is and how exhausted you are. He also doesn't speak to the actors much, which is very new for me. I'm very used to directors who have been very vocal and will sit you down and even spend 15 minutes to just talk about what the next take should look like. But Steven is he's big on, if it ain't broke, I'm not gonna fix it. And he's big on until I think you should do something different, I think he came up to me twice. And the two times he came up to me, I was terrified because I was like, what did I do wrong, Steven? What did I do wrong? And that's him as a director. It's something to adjust. It's definitely an adjustment. And because he trusts you so much, that means you have to trust yourself. And so as an actor, it's not easy to trust yourself. And actors are crazy. We are very, we are some of the most insecure people because of the job we do. So it's about trusting yourself and coming to work knowing that you got what it takes and then doing it.
Well, thank you so much, Jharrel. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and I just want to congratulate you because it came out amazing. And you telling me that you guys had to rehearse like a couple times. The show came out great, and your portrayal of the character, although I am not a fan of him, it came out really, really well. So congratulations on that.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
Good, good. How you doing?
I'm good, excited. I've seen a bunch of your like movies and stuff, so I'm really excited to be able to interview you. So, how was it portraying a more serious character in this show than your usual comedic roles?
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, I always enjoy um, you know, portraying, characters that are, the more kind of complex they are, the more fulfilling they are. So usually the more flawed they are, the more interesting they are. So someone like Manny, and the way it's laid out in the show is really, um, it's it's rewarding because there's a lot of nuance and it's so layered. Some of the math of trying to figure out what your character's motivation in the past or even in the present is so complex, but it's rewarding to kind of figure out the puzzle.
Did you study any certain actors or characters to, be more fit for this role to play Manny as you think he should be played as?
Not really. I really I knew that he was, uh this public servant and his approach and his attitude towards Mel and towards his job and towards was in some of the writing. So I built it surrounding the insights that are in the dialogue or the behavior. So I think that the fact that he was ambitious and wanted that position, that maybe he probably wasn't as ambitious as he was, but I think also in his um relationships with women, uh really kind of highlighted some misogyny, but also I think his view on life. Like the reason he says, whenever I get in an argument with a woman, I lose, is just kind of like, I think it's a symptom of his inability to take personal responsibility. So like he's not somebody like, my marriage didn't work out, and it's both our fault. He's the guy who's like, my wife was crazy. You know what I mean? And if he was, uh, you know, so like it was very much fun to kind of have that complexity and also know where eventually his his story was going and kind of working back from that. And I knew that like in the script that Mel, Zazi's character, was saying such, she had such a negative take on him, like from the get-go, that I wanted to kind of raise an expectation that when they met Zazie and Manny, that there were people that were going to view the relationship as, oh, is this just a boss that's dealing with kind of like a maverick or someone who they're trying to like rein in, or is this, you know, a Gen X guy who's dealing with a millennial that doesn't want to wait their turn. So it was just kind of bearing it, because eventually what we learn is that Mel was right, but I didn't want people to think, I didn't want to play, oh, this guy's a dirtbag the entire way. You know what I mean? And I wanted it to also be that, you know, some empathies, because I find that most rewarding when you watch a show or a movie and you get emotionally invested in the character, and then you end up like, oh, wait a minute, he is corrupt. You know what I mean? Or, oh, wait, because once we have an investment, then we end up rationalizing for that character, and we sit there and go, well, what was he supposed to do? And as the actor, you're automatically on your character's side, because if you have any hesitation in their behavior or their choices, then it appears like acting, I think.
How was working with Zazie?
Oh, she was great. She was really, she's really fun. And there's also, she really enjoys what she's doing. And so there was kind of, the dense nature of the stories, the multi-layered stories. There was, that certain panic of, like, before you're entering an exam and you run into someone as you go into an exam, you're like, explain to me what is this going on, because you'd have a 2-page scene, but you're kind of like creating this relationship. And so there was times when we would be laughing, because it was like, she was like, I think Manny has a crush on Mel. And I'm like, maybe he does. I don't think, but it's nothing creepy. You know what I mean? So it was like, because there was, he didn't turn in the psych eval. And so why didn't he? It's not like he held back the psych eval because he wanted to have some leverage over her. He never imagined that she would end up tying him into this thing. Manny's was smart. He really cleaned it up, and like, he knew that, like, even when he talks to Sam in the park, he's like, all we have to do is nothing, because it's all the pieces are there. And so the reason he held back the psych eval is because I think he had some empathy towards her, and he knew that, like, some of the language in that psych eval was pretty brutal. So, like, he knew it would destroy her career. And he, as he had gone through his ambitious period, and he probably identified with some of her, go-getterism. You know what I mean? He was, he wasn't all bad, and even some of the phone calls of when she's at the park, he's, you know, he's not being a lazy boss. He's like, you're gonna get in fucking trouble. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. So I just want to say thank you again for doing this interview. You did amazing portraying Manny. That you guys connected super well. So congratulations on that.
Thanks.
And again, thank you so much for having the time to do this interview with me.
Appreciate it. Thank you.